Cranes are complex and powerful machines with the ability to help us perform tasks that would otherwise be impossible. They are at work on nearly every construction site and at many industrial facilities as well. That's what makes safe crane operation so important. Failure to follow even one safety rule can result in property damage, injury, or even loss of life. Because of the potential dangers involved, the crane operator must ensure that all actions are carried out with the highest regard for safety. No single training course, instruction manual, or videotape can possibly list all of the elements that go into safe crane operation. However, this program will cover some of the key points that you should know about and follow. Providing operator training is one of the best investments any crane owner or user can make. Such training will help provide a crane operator with the knowledge needed to successfully perform the lifts essential to many construction and industrial projects. Safe crane operation can be divided into 4 broad areas. First is a basic understanding of the different types of cranes and how they work. Second is being familiar with safe craning practices and having the ability to read a crane load chart. Third is pre-planning, observing, and adjusting to conditions at the work site. Fourth is lifting operations. Crane operators must recognize that there are many different types and models of mobile cranes. They include conventional lattice boom cranes in both crawler and carrier-mounted versions. Hydraulic telescoping boom cranes in rough terrain. Carrier-mounted. And all-terrain versions. And material handling or industrial cranes. Each type of crane may have its own peculiarities and special features. For this reason, the operator must always be fully knowledgeable of the crane's operation before using it. The operator should have a working knowledge of how power is transferred through the crane's electrical and hydraulic systems and be aware of special characteristics of these systems, such as thermal expansion and contraction of oil in hydraulic cylinders. The operator must also understand how to read and interpret each of the crane's instruments and gauges. Strict adherence to the crane's load chart is one of the most important parts of safe crane operation. The operator must fully and completely understand the in-cab load chart prior to making any lifts with a crane. The operator must know which chart to use for each given crane configuration. He must understand what is included in the load and be able to make appropriate deductions for hook blocks, rigging, and other attachments. No loads should ever be lifted that are in excess of the capacities on the crane's in-cab load chart. The load rating chart represents the manufacturer's limitations of the crane's lifting capacity. To exceed load chart capacities would be a direct violation of safe crane operating practices. The operator must be able to use the range diagram and working area diagram to pre-plan lifts and determine capacities. The operator should be familiar with state, local, and federal regulations and national safety standards applicable to cranes and their operation. He should also know and follow job site safety rules. The operator and other personnel working around the crane must read, understand, and follow the safety instructions provided by the manufacturer. The Crane's Operators and Safety Handbook is an important instructional resource that should always be kept in the cab where it will be readily available for reference by the operator and others. All warning and instructional decals and placards installed on the crane by the manufacturer should be read and heeded. Any decal or placard that becomes worn, damaged, or missing should be promptly replaced. Getting the crane safely to the job site requires special planning. Prior to travel, the crane should be inspected for road readiness. Tires should be inspected for proper inflation and wear. Brakes should be checked. And lights should be inspected for proper functioning. If the crane will be transported by trailer, it must be properly positioned and secured, and the rotating superstructure locked. A travel route should be planned, taking into account width, height, length, and weight limits to ensure adequate bridge and other clearances exist along the route to be traveled. Before a crane is brought onto a job site, the area should be thoroughly inspected to determine if safe crane operation is possible. The ground surface at the site must be firm and capable of supporting the total weight of the crane and all loads to be lifted. The surface must also be level enough to allow the crane itself to be leveled. For lifting on outriggers, all tires must be free of ground contact. For uneven surfaces, and if there is any doubt about surface conditions, proper cribbing should be selected and prepared prior to crane setup. The work site must be accessible, free of obstructions, and have adequate clearance to safely operate the crane. There must be sufficient space to properly extend the outrigger and to rotate the superstructure and boom through their intended working positions. Proper job planning must include determining boom lengths, working heights, and working radii that will be used on the job site to perform the necessary lifts. The site must provide adequate clearance from all obstructions in the crane's and load's path of travel. The site should be checked to ensure that all lifting operations can be performed while maintaining adequate clearance from overhead electrical power lines. Most overhead power lines are not insulated, making crane operation extremely dangerous if any portion of the crane, the boom or loads to be lifted, can reach to within unsafe distances. Federal law prohibits the operation of cranes within 10 feet of power lines up to 50,000 volts, and greater distances are required for higher voltages. If power lines are present on the work site, all personnel must assume that all lines are energized, and the power company should be notified prior to setting up the crane or making any lifts. If it is necessary to operate a crane in the vicinity of power lines, the power company should be requested to disconnect the power and ground the lines, or to reroute the lines away from the work area. If shutting off the power or rerouting the lines is not possible, extra precautions must be taken and all personnel must be adequately warned of safety procedures. Have the power company install brightly colored markers, trapeze structures, or other devices to improve visibility of the lines. Determine safe working distances and use barrier tape, traffic cones, or other means to mark the absolute limits of approach to the lines. Plan ahead. Make sure you have a safe route before traveling under power lines or setting up a crane near power lines. Once on the job site, operations must be well planned and coordinated with all personnel. When it comes to actual crane operation, safety requires a conscious effort by all persons involved, from planning and setup through each lift. An essential part of planning for any lift operation is personal preparation. Only well-trained and responsible personnel should operate and work near a crane. The crane operator and other personnel must be physically fit and mentally alert at all times. They should each be equipped with appropriate personal protective equipment, such as hard hats, safety glasses, gloves, and work shoes. Another part of planning the lift involves performing periodic inspection and routine maintenance of the crane. The crane must be in proper working condition to ensure safe operation. No lifts should ever be made with a crane that has been poorly maintained, is damaged, or is malfunctioning in any way. The crane's service manual should be consulted for proper inspection, maintenance, and repair procedures, and all crane modifications must be factory authorized. One good way to perform inspections is to use a checklist supplied by the crane manufacturer. The maintenance and inspection manual can help ensure the crane is in proper working condition. It also serves as a means for keeping inspection and maintenance records. The boom, including lattice sections and boom extensions, should be inspected for cracks or damage. Hydraulic components should be examined for leaks. Coolant and other fluids should be checked and filled to recommended levels. All controls and operator aids should be checked for proper functioning before making any lifts. Prior to operation of the crane, all hooks, hook blocks, latches, sheaves, and wire rope should be inspected for damage. All damaged components should be repaired or replaced as necessary. Wire rope should be inspected for wear, broken wires or strands, mechanical damage, and for proper lay on the hoist drum. The operator must know about the various types of wire rope used on cranes. Different types of wire rope have differing characteristics and limitations. Therefore, it is important to know and implement the wire rope manufacturer's recommendations concerning proper care, handling, cutting, maintenance, inspection, installation, lubrication, and use of the wire rope. Overall, the crane should be kept clean and free from dirt and oil. Keep all climbing, walking, and working surfaces clean. And use only the manufacturer's designated access system for getting on and off the crane. By now, it should be apparent that there are many things to know and understand about cranes. Safe crane operation can be achieved only if everyone who works around the crane, including riggers and oilers, consistently follows safe work practices and applies their knowledge and common sense to lifting operations. Riggers, load handlers, and the crane operator should be thoroughly familiar with and use ANSI-recognized hand signals. During crane operations, a designated signalman should be positioned where he can best view the operations and where the crane operator can see him at all times. The crane operator is in command of all setup procedures and makes the final determination as to whether or not the crane and job site are prepared for safe lifting operations. When the crane is in position, an effective communication between the signalman and the operator has been established. Crane setup can begin. The operator should properly extend and set the outriggers and level the crane. The operator should then elevate the boom. Check the tail swing and set up barricades. Access to the crane and job site must be restricted. Only necessary personnel should be allowed in the vicinity of the crane and the load being lifted. No one other than the operator should be on the crane